Good morning, afternoon, depending on where you are. It is Steve Lookner with Agenda Free TV. Give me 1 second here. I have to open up one of the chat windows here. We are here to cover the first press conference of the second Trump administration. So Karoline Leavitt, the press secretary, will be giving a press briefing, not press conference, the first White House press briefing of the second Trump administration. That's going to be in 36 minutes if it starts on time. And we're here to bring you live coverage of it. And we're going to be talking about what they might discuss. I appreciate you being here, and probably a lot of questions on this memo that was sent out yesterday by the Trump administration ordering a pause in federal funding. There's a bunch of confusion about what exactly this memo means, questions about the legality of it. So I think there's going to be a lot of questions about this. You can see here, legal battle looms as Trump orders a federal funding freeze during a review of federal loans and grants. So we'll talk about this beforehand because, again, I think that might even be the top topic today, although I'm sure there'll be questions about a lot of things. Big questions about a lot of things, but we'll talk about this first. Hey, thanks to PZ Papa Zulu for the gift memberships. That's so nice of you. Thanks also to our moderators, Ruth Krafasi, Janet B., Beth Mythical over there on YouTube, Roberts Mayqueen, Linda Belk and Larry on X. Thanks also to Good Luck Duck and Surly Dev are modding over there on Twitch. Thank you. Thanks also to Farquad67 for subscribing. Thank you. And also, thanks to, give me a moment here, Kay Lowry Body, who's moderating over there on Facebook. Thank you, Kay. Appreciate all of our moderators here. Margaret Riley as well. And also a quick heads up. So it is possible that I will not, that at the end of the stream, it's possible that at the end of the briefing, we will just end the stream. Normally, we would talk about the briefing after the briefing, but I had made this appointment that I have to go to, this press briefing was announced last night, I think it was. So I didn't know about this when I made the appointment. So depending on if the briefing starts on time, it might work out that I am here when the briefing ends and can say a quick goodbye. But just be prepared. We might have to do this thing, which I hate doing, but we might have to do, where the briefing ends and then I'm not here and I'll just, and the broadcast will just stop. So I apologize in advance if that happens, but just a warning. So I'm trying to get to do what I need to do, but also do the coverage. Okay, thank you to Mike Cause for being a member. All right. Anyways, let's start talking about this funding pause, which I think would go into effect at 5 p.m. today, if I have that right. Okay, so here's an AP article here. Oops, if I can show it to you. Here it is. The White House is pausing federal grants and loans starting today as the Trump administration begins an across-the-board ideological review of its spending, causing confusion and panic among organizations that rely on Washington for their financial lifeline. Administration officials said the decision was necessary to ensure that all funding complies with Trump's executive orders, which are intended to undo progressive steps on transgender rights, environmental justice and diversity, equity and inclusion, or DEI efforts. They also said that federal assistance to individuals would not be affected, including Social Security, Medicare, food stamps, student loans, and scholarships. However, the funding freeze, which starts today, could affect trillions of dollars, at least temporarily, and cause widespread disruption in healthcare research, education programs, and other initiatives. Even grants that have been awarded but not spent are supposed to be halted. Court battles are imminent. And Democratic New York Attorney General Letitia James plans to ask Manhattan Federal Court to block the Republican president's moves. The pause is scheduled to take effect at 5 p.m. Eastern Time today, just one day after agencies were informed of the decision. I actually have the memo here that I can show you. Democratic Senator Patty Murray of Washington, the top Democrat on the Senate Appropriations Committee, said the scope of this illegal action is unprecedented and could have devastating consequences across the country. For real people, we could see a screeching halt to resources for child care, cancer research, housing, police officers, opioid addiction treatment, rebuilding roads, and even disaster relief efforts. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat from New York, called it more lawlessness and chaos in America. It is unclear from the White House memo how sweeping the pause will be. The author of the memo said all spending must comply with Trump's executive orders. Okay, so the memo is right here. You can see it says, Executive Office of the President, Office of Management and Budget. It is dated yesterday from Matthew J. Vaith, Acting Director, Office of Management and Budget. Temporary pause of agency grant, loan, and other financial assistance programs. Now, I don't know if I want to read the whole thing. Let's kind of just go through it real quick. The American people elected Donald J. Trump to be president of the United States, gave him a mandate to increase the impact of every federal taxpayer dollar. Career and political appointees in the executive branch have a duty to align federal spending and action with the will of the American people as expressed through presidential priorities. Financial assistance should be dedicated to advancing administration priorities. Okay. The use of federal resources to advance Marxist equity, transgenderism, and Green New Deal social engineering policies is a waste of taxpayer dollars that does not improve the day-to-day lives of those we serve, it says. This memo requires federal agencies to identify and review all federal financial assistance programs and supporting activities consistent with the president's policies and requirements. Okay. To implement these orders, each agency must complete a comprehensive analysis of all of their federal financial assistance programs to identify programs, projects, and activities that may be implicated by any of the president's executive orders. In the interim, to the extent permissible under applicable law, I don't know what the applicable law is, federal agencies in bold letters must temporarily pause all activities related to obligation of or disbursement of all federal financial assistance and other relevant agency activities that may be implicated by the executive orders, including but not limited to financial assistance for foreign aid, non-governmental organizations, DEI, woke gender ideology, and the Green New Deal. So basically, it's telling all federal agencies, you need to pause your spending and look at all the spending to see if it meets with Trump's executive orders. By the way, so there's questions about the legality of this order, by the way. Also some confusion over what spending it actually might apply to, what spending might be in conflict with Trump's executive orders. So, but now in here it says that the Nothing in this memo should be construed to impact Medicare or Social Security benefits. And then the memo says no later than February 10th, agencies shall submit to OMB detailed information on any programs, projects, or activities subject to this pause. Each agency must pause issuance of new awards of funds, disbursement of federal funds under all open awards, and other relevant agency actions that may be implicated under the executive orders. Blah, 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 blah. So I'm not a lawyer, but it appears that this could cause a widespread stoppage in federal spending that has already been approved by Congress. Oops, sorry. You can see here, White House pauses all federal grants, sparking confusion. So this is going to be a big topic. That's the Washington Post story. This is going to be a big topic today. I mean, there'll be other topics, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is the first one. But it's not even clear what the impact of this memo that came out yesterday will be. Our viewer, Barefoot Bag Lady, says this is nuts. One of our viewers says, Paul Mufoletto says Trump is making America great again. Peggy McGuire says this is going to be interesting to watch. Matt Kinney says it's illegal. Congress has the purse string. See Constitution. Let's see. You can see here the Washington Post says the White House Budget Office is ordering a pause to all grants and loans disbursed by the federal government, according to that memo I just showed you. The order may impact at least tens of billions of dollars in payments, said this expert. A person familiar with the order confirmed the accuracy of the document and said it applied to all grants. The memo goes into effect today, again, I believe at 5 p.m. Federal grants support a broad range of recipients and causes, says the Washington Post. They go to universities for education and research programs and to nonprofits for health care and studies, among thousands of other purposes. Several congressional Democratic aides, speaking on the condition of anonymity, said they were bewildered by the memo and trying to understand its implications for the federal government. Senate Minority Leader Democrat Chuck Schumer said, "They say this is only temporary, but no one should believe that. Donald Trump must direct his administration to reverse course immediately, and the taxpayers' money should be distributed to the people. Congress approved these investments, and they are not optional. They are the law. The order's legality may be contested, but the president is generally allowed under the law to defer spending for a period of time, according to budget experts. To comply, though, Trump must make clear which budget accounts are frozen," said this expert, and the budget office's memo may not provide sufficient grounds under the law to pause the funding. Another expert said the language in the memo is confusing, making its specific effects unclear. There will be widespread panic, said this expert, as state and local governments, as well as the people most reliant on federal-funded grants, scramble to figure out if and when their cash flow will stop. The expert, who is a former dean of the University of Maryland School of Public Policy, said, "In 2 pages, we've got what amounts to 60 years of tradition and policies that are thrown up in the air. For those suffering most, the uncertainty will be a mess." Another expert said the administration should legally be able to pause the money temporarily, but would need to submit a formal request to Congress to do so beyond a set window. A number of experts have expressed concern about Trump's promises to wrest spending control away from Congress. All right. So again, it's not exactly clear what programs federal spending is going to be impacted by this order. We will have to see how this plays out. And again, I'm going to take some comments from you guys, but I do think it's going to be a big topic of discussion, especially since it goes into effect in about 4.5 hours, I think. You can see Reuters says White House pauses federal grant loan other assistance programs. Okay. But it does not affect, the memo says, Social Security or Medicare. Ghost of Your Fears says, I'm not panicking. Chaos is good for a reset. Rassfish thinks this could devastate small businesses that rely upon loans for funding, especially in rural areas. Alpha Turtle says pausing grants that are going to for-profit businesses so they can review if they are breaking the law. I don't see an issue. Well, they're not breaking any laws. Executive orders are not laws. Laws need to be passed by Congress and signed by the president. The memo, and maybe this is what you meant, but the memo said that is about the memo is about spending being in compliance with Trump's executive orders, which are not laws. They want the memo wants the spending to be in compliance with Trump's executive orders. Federal agencies must temporarily pause all activities related to obligation or disbursement of all federal financial assistance and other relevant agency activities that may be implicated by the executive orders. Let's see here. Miles B. thinks this is stupid. Gary Baines says, LOL, Schumer always bickering about something. Jen Dat says, Congress is in charge of the purse. The Zulgrun said, I didn't get a notification. Well, if you didn't get a notification, you should sign up for our Discord notifications, which work the best of all. If you're not signed up for our Discord notifications, sign up for them. They're free. Those are the best notifications for the channel. The mods will post the link to those in the chat, but sign up for those. We are going to bring you live coverage in about 19, well, depending on if it starts on time, but it's supposed to start in 19 minutes. This is the first White House press briefing during Trump's second term. The White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt will be leading the press briefing, and we will have coverage for you. As I mentioned, the way this stream will probably play out today, unfortunately, is at the end of the press briefing. Normally, I would come back on the air and we would discuss the press briefing, but I have a personal conflict today, an appointment I need to go to. This press briefing was just scheduled last night. So I think what's going to probably end up happening is at the end of the press briefing, the broadcast will just end without me being there. And I do apologize for that. I actually should post that in the chat. Maybe I'll post it during the press briefing and I'll pin it saying like, heads up, the broadcast may just end right after the press briefing. So I do apologize for that, but I think that's what's going to happen. Hopefully we can bring you the whole press briefing and all that. It should be fine. If it starts too late, if it starts more than an hour late, we could have a real problem. As long as it doesn't start an hour late, we should be good to go, at least by showing you the briefing. So let's hope it doesn't start more than an hour late. Okay. Philip Murphy says, who will be seated in the front row? I do not know. Other things, let me know if you think other things will be talked about. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff involving Trump that could be discussed. So, but let me know if you have thoughts on that. You can message me at Lookner on X. Oh, Jim Acosta has left CNN, by the way. He said, today was my last at CNN. I haven't even watched this yet. He said, today's show was my last at CNN. My closing message, it's never a good time to bow down to a tyrant. Don't give in to the lies. Don't give in to the fear. Hold on to the truth and hope. I'll repost this on my X account, I think. I got to look at it, though. He just posted that, though. I'll repost it there. It's his. He just posted it on his X account. I haven't even watched it, but you can watch it if you want. Maybe I'll watch it after. I don't have the rights to show it. It's a CNN video. Okay. By the way, in a couple minutes, I might actually have a live shot from the press briefing. Oh, hold on. I have a live shot from the room. I have a live shot from the press briefing room. Look, guys. Oh, wait. I think. Look at this. Hang on. Hang on a moment.
Keep space clear. Trip hazard. It takes space.
Look at this. I need to fix something, though. There we go.
Sorry, guys. One more. The briefing room seats are assigned, so please allow people who are assigned to their seats to sit in their seat. If somebody shows up, if you are sitting in someone's seat that is not yours, and they show up, you need to vacate the seat for the person who is assigned to that seat.
Wow. It's like the first day of school. If somebody shows up and you're in their seat, you need to leave the seat.
I did, and it worked.
Wow. The press secretary is Karoline Leavitt. I'll show you something about her. Here's the Wikipedia page. Karoline Leavitt. She is 27 years old. She is the youngest White House press secretary in U.S. history. She served as the press secretary for Trump's presidential campaign. She was assistant press secretary and presidential writer during the first Trump administration. Sam Bino says, get out of my seat. Hey, thank you to Kirst for your support. Kirst says, remove trillions from the economy, brilliant. Thank you also, Kurt W9BBW, for your support, and Baby Blue Sky, who says, sounds like Doge might be behind the memo. Thank you, Baby Blue Sky. Thank you, John Posey. Yes, we read that part of the order when I was reading it over, John Posey. Thank you, John, for your support. Let's see here. Give me a moment. Rasfish says, I wonder if Trump will mention the thing with the country of Colombia over them taking the... Well, it's not Trump. Maybe you mean I think you mean the press secretary will mention the... I wonder if the press secretary will mention the dispute with the country of Colombia and also, what did you say? DeepSeek. We covered DeepSeek yesterday. Sleuthy TV says, I bet there will be no let me circle back to you. Lida Licaria says, I'm shocked at how fast he's collapsing the government. Lord Venom says he froze all federal funding. Again, he didn't freeze all federal funding, but it's possible this memo that came out yesterday from the Trump administration temporarily froze a lot of federal funding. And again, that memo is supposed to take effect 5 p.m. today. It's 5 p.m. Eastern time today. Hang on one moment here. The AP says, at face value, the evening memo that came out last night and went to federal agencies is meant to bring federal spending in line with Trump's executive actions, notably on LGBTQ plus issues, civil rights, energy, and environmental policy. The memo said the use of federal resources to advance Marxist equity, transgenderism, and Green New Deal social engineering policies is a waste of taxpayer dollars that does not improve the day-to-day lives of who we serve. Connor Garrity says proper press briefing. Oh yeah, it's going to be reporters. I think everybody there is going to be a member of the press. I don't think you're going to have spectators there. I think it's not a giant room from what I understand. Link Ray says lots of stuff, including the Panama Canal and SpaceX. Panama Canal could get asked about. Greenland could get asked about. The dismissal of people at the Justice Department recently by Trump could get asked about, and other firings. This is from today here, this headline. Trump Justice Department says it has fired employees involved in prosecutions of the president. The abrupt termination targeting career prosecutors who worked on special counsel Jack Smith's team is the latest sign of upheaval inside the Justice Department and is consistent with the administration's determination to purge the government of workers it perceives as disloyal to the president, says AP. That could get asked about today? Andy Lunchbox says, let's go, time to cut the fat. Tiffany says, this is super scary, terminating people who worked on prosecuting crime. Kenny K says deportations could be asked about. Maybe nominees, cabinet nominees. Thanks to all our moderators. Hey, Danny James is here. Hey, Danny. Thanks for moderating. Janet B., Beth Mythical over there on YouTube. Really appreciate all of our moderators. Linda Belk and Larry on X. Cynthia Moon also moderating. Queenful is moderating. Also on Twitch, A Moment of Lovely, Good Luck Dark, I Got That Fire, Mark HNC, Papa Bear, and Surly Dev. Thanks, Wall Street, for subscribing. For 21 months, thank you. Farquad subscribed for 29 months, so nice of you, thank you. not 21 and 29 additional month. They've been subscribed for that long. That's awesome. Thank you. Margaret Riley, K. Lowry, Body Modding on Facebook. Thank you. This is going to be the thanks to Peasy Wheats for the gift membership. Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining. We're about 7 minutes away if this starts on time. This will be the first press. Well, I don't know that she led any briefings in the previous administration. I don't know for a fact whether Karoline Leavitt read any briefings in the previous administration. I think that's, by the way, I think that in the white, I think that is Jackie Heinrich from Fox News, I think. But this will be her first press briefing as secretary, press secretary. May Gardner Mills says, I saw her talk recently. Mikhail says she is a baby still. She is 27 years old. Floyd Jackson says, we'll do it live. Thank you, Hamburger, our new member. One of our viewers said, Matt Kinney says, oh yeah, we got a lot of questions, press secretary. Do they pick and choose who gets to attend? Yeah, I certainly would think it's up to them. I mean, all the major outlets that would normally be there, I'm assuming, are there, because I've not heard any reporting that any major outlet has been shut out. But, you know, the final call is the White House. So I don't know, in terms of the seats besides the major outlets, I don't know who else is there. Thank you, Liza, our member. Thank you, Peggy McGuire, our member. Thanks to Andreas. Says, how will the press conference affect oil prices? I assume not much unless some surprising announcement regarding oil takes place. Again, it's kind of like the first day of school, it seems like. There was an announcement before that if you sit somewhere, the seats are assigned, and if somebody comes and they're in your seat, you need to, and you're in their seat, you need to get out. Cubes for Squares mentions Mexican border issues. That could get asked about too. All kinds of things. Ukraine war, the situation in Israel could get asked about, and Gaza, right? What's going to happen in Gaza? You know, Trump has suggested wanting people in Gaza, the residents of Gaza, to maybe go to other countries. This is an AP story here. Trump's Palestinian refugee idea falls flat with Arab allies and confounds a Republican senator. Trump's push to have Egypt and Jordan take in large numbers of Palestinian refugees from besieged Gaza fell flat with those countries' governments, says AP. Egypt and Jordan, along with Palestinians, worry that Israel would never allow the people, the Palestinians from Gaza, to return to Gaza once they have left. Both Egypt and Jordan also have perpetually struggling economies, and their governments, as well as those of other Arab states, fear massive destabilization of their own countries and the region from any such influx of refugees. Trump suggested that resettling most of Gaza's population of 2.3 million could be temporary or long-term. Anyway, so that could get asked about. Red says, declassify the China balloons and Montana incident. Thank you, Red, for your support. and Jay Knows Which for being a member, and Satoshi's Limo Driver for being a member. Satoshi's Limo Driver says, I look forward to hearing a difference in tone. Well, in a couple minutes, we're going to see what the tone is like. All right, again, we're at 1 minute and 15 seconds until 1 p.m. When the clock reaches 0, I'll change it to at any moment. Troy Rubert says, will she have a binder? Your Shepherd says, will there be a memorial to Jim Acosta, who said he was leaving CNN today? Oh, yes, that is on the left. Our viewer pointed it out. I think that's Peter Alexander from NBC. Dante pointed that out. We got, I think, Peter Alexander from NBC and Jackie Heinrich, I believe, from Fox. Unless I'm wrong. All right, guys, in 15 seconds, it's going to be 1 p.m. So I don't know exactly when this is going to start. You can see Peter Alexander is doing a live hit, it looks like. Oh, they got quiet in the room. Now, the White House itself, oh, they're live. Hold on a second. Give me 1 second here. What I want to do is, okay, I'll probably switch to, I think the White House feed will show the questioners. So when it starts, I'm probably going to switch to that feed because I think it'll be better for you guys. I have 2 different feeds. I think this feed's going to be better for you, but we'll see what happens. For now, you can actually see this feed. So this is better for now. Let's see here. Now, I think that's Jennifer Jacobs of CBS News who just took a selfie. All right, hang on a moment here. Let me just get everything set up. Oh, the clock, obviously. So let me take the clock off. We don't need that anymore. That's done. And let me just fix the headline now. Main headline. Any moment. First White House press briefing. I know it's all shifted over. Sorry. Oops. Okay, that's good. Wonderful. And let me just fix it on the other thing. Just a reminder, a quick reminder, is usually, almost always, if we were covering a press briefing or anything else, we would talk about it afterwards. But today, this got scheduled last night, and or sometime yesterday, I think it was last night, and I already had this appointment I have to go to. So what's probably going to happen today is that at the end of the briefing, this broadcast is just going to end. I will not actually come on the air at the end of the briefing.
This is obviously the first briefing of this new Trump administration, and there's no shortage of things to ask about. I mean, day one, there were 200 or so executive actions that were taken. The president last night signed another slate of 5, I believe, seen all the executive orders and one action that added more discussion. So new executive orders coming in every day, basically.
Hey, thanks to Fred Flintstone for your support, and Channel 5 Action News and Freedom Can. Thank you.
She ran unsuccessfully for a Congress seat in New Hampshire, and now, of course, she will be taking the podium at a time when there are a lot lot of questions about all of the
I can hear Caitlin Collins from CNN. She is speaking. I can hear her.
Thank you.
That's Jackie Heinrich in the white of Fox News and Peter Alexander of NBC News standing up.
Was it, maybe they're taking the wrong mic.
Okay, they just took a 2-minute warning, so I'm just gonna
They were hearing shotgun audio, I think.
Yeah, Kurt said there was a 2-minute warning. I thought maybe somebody said 2-minute warning, but I'm not sure. All right, again, I might end up switching the camera to the White House feed right as it starts. So give me a second to do that when she comes in. UV Lightning says, here we go. Thank you for being with us today. I appreciate you joining us for the stream. Kind of nervous here for the first briefing. I'm a little nervous. It's all quiet in there. Again, I might, when it starts, I might switch to the White House feed because I think the White House feed is going to show you the questioners better. So you might see the picture switch to this feed when we start. There's the other feed right there. We got both of them ready for you. Is that a new stage? That I don't know. Good question. Oh, hold on. Here it is. There it is.
Just for the entrance. Oh, you're all good. I've never even seen this room yet, so it's kind of crazy. It's packed.
No.
Not since 4 years ago like this. Oh, like a tuna fish. Yeah. Imagine being back there. Sorry.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Here we go.
How are we? Good to see all of you. It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. And President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun. The Senate has already confirmed 5 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees: Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. It is imperative that the Senate continues to confirm the remainder of the president's well-qualified nominees as quickly as possible. As you have seen during the past week, President Trump is hard at work fulfilling the promises that he made to the American people on the campaign trail. Since taking the oath of office, President Trump has taken more than 300 executive actions, secured nearly $1 trillion in U.S. investments, deported illegal alien rapists, gang members, and suspected terrorists from our homeland, and restored common sense to the federal government. I want to take a moment to go through some of these extraordinary actions. On day 1, President Trump declared a national emergency at our southern border to end the 4-year-long invasion of illegal aliens under the previous administration. Additionally, President Trump signed an executive order to end catch and release and finish construction of his effective border wall. By using every lever of his federal power, President Trump has sent a loud and clear message to the entire world. America will no longer tolerate illegal immigration. And this president expects that every nation on this planet will cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens. As proven by this weekend, when President Trump swiftly directed his team to issue harsh and effective sanctions and tariffs on the Colombian government, upon hearing they were denied a U.S. military aircraft full of their own citizens who were deported by this administration. Within hours, the Colombian government agreed to all of President Trump's demands, proving America is once again respected on the world stage. So, to foreign nationals who are thinking about trying to illegally enter the United States, think again. Under this president, you will be detained and you will be deported. Every day, Americans are safer because of the violent criminals that President Trump's administration is removing from our communities. On January 23rd, ICE New York arrested a Turkish national for entry without inspection who is a known or suspected terrorist. On January 23rd, ICE San Francisco arrested a citizen of Mexico unlawfully present in the United States who has been convicted of continuous sexual abuse of a child aged 14 years or younger. ICE St. Paul has arrested a citizen of Honduras who was convicted of fourth-degree criminal sexual conduct with a minor. ICE Buffalo arrested a citizen of Ecuador who has been convicted of rape. ICE Boston arrested a citizen of the Dominican Republic who has a criminal conviction for second-degree murder. This criminal was convicted of murder for beating his pregnant wife to death in front of her 5-year-old son. And ICE St. Paul also arrested a citizen of Mexico who was convicted of possessing pornographic material of a minor on a work computer. These are the heinous individuals that this administration is removing from American communities every single day, and to the brave state and local law enforcement officers, CBP, and ICE agents who are helping in the facilitation of this deportation operation, President Trump has your back, and he is grateful for your hard work. On the economic front, President Trump took immediate action to lower costs for families who are suffering from 4 long years of the Biden administration's destructive and inflationary policies. President Trump ordered the heads of all executive departments and agencies to help deliver emergency price relief to the American people, untangle our economy from Biden's regulatory constraints, and end the reckless war on American energy. President Trump also signed sweeping executive orders to end the weaponization of government and restore common sense to the federal bureaucracy. He directed all federal agencies to terminate illegal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs to help return America to a merit-based society. President Trump also signed an executive order declaring it is now the policy of the federal government that there are only 2 sexes, male and female. Sanity has been restored. Before I take your questions, I would like to point out to all of you once again have access to the most transparent and accessible president in American history. There has never been a president who communicates with the American people and the American press corps as openly and authentically as the 45th and now 47th president of the United States. This past week, President Trump has held multiple news conferences, gaggled on Air Force One multiple times, and sat down for a 2-part interview on Fox News, which aired last week. As Politico summed it up best, Trump is everywhere again. And that's because President Trump has a great story to tell about the legendary American revival that is well underway. And in keeping with this revolutionary media approach that President Trump deployed during the campaign, the Trump White House will speak to all media outlets and personalities, not just the legacy media who are seated in this room. Because according to recent polling from Gallup, Americans' trust in mass media has fallen to a record low. Millions of Americans, especially young people, have turned from traditional television outlets and newspapers to consume their news from podcasts, blogs, social media, and other independent outlets. It's essential to our team that we share President Trump's message everywhere and adapt this White House to the new media landscape in 2025. To do this, I'm excited to announce the following changes will be made to this historic James S. Brady briefing room, where Mr. Brady's legacy will endure. This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment, so it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration. We're also opening up this briefing room to new media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats in this room. We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House. And you can apply now on our new website, whitehouse.gov/newmedia. Starting today, this seat in the front of the room, which is usually occupied by the press secretary's staff, will be called the new media seat. My team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex. So in light of these announcements, our first questions for today's briefing will go to these new media members whose outlets, despite being some of the most viewed news websites in the country, have not been given seats in this room. And before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office. From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy. A statement from the President of the United States to start this briefing with some news. And with that, I will turn it over to questions. And we will begin with our new media members, Mike Allen from Axios, Matt Boyle from Breitbart. Mike, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you very much. Karoline, does the President see anything fishy about DeepSeek, either its origins or its cost? And could China's ability to make these models quicker, cheaper, affect our thinking about expanding generation data centers, chip manufacturing?
Sure. The President was asked about DeepSeek last night on Air Force One when he gaggled for, I think, the third or fourth time throughout the weekend with members of the traveling press corps. The President said that he believes that this is a wake-up call to the American AI industry. The last administration sat on their hands and allowed China to rapidly develop this AI program. And so President Trump believes in restoring American AI dominance. And that's why he took very strong executive action this past week to sign executive orders to roll back some of the onerous regulations on the AI industry. And President Trump has also proudly appointed the first AI and crypto czar at this White House, David Sachs, whom I spoke with yesterday, very knowledgeable on this subject, and his team is here working every single day to ensure American AI dominance. As for the national security implications, I spoke with NSC this morning. They are looking into what those may be, and when I have an update, I will share it with you, Mike.
And Caroline, you say restore U.S. dominance. Is there a fear that the U.S. either is falling or has fallen behind? And how would the President make sure the U.S. stays ahead?
No, the President is confident that we will restore American dominance in AI.
Yeah, so Caroline, first off, thank you to you and President Trump for actually giving voices to new media outlets that represent millions and millions of Americans. The thing I would add, I've got a two-part question for you. The first is just can you expand upon what steps the White House is going to take to bring more voices, not less, which is what our founder Andrew Breitbart believed in, into this room where they rightfully belong?
Yeah. Absolutely. And as I said in my opening statement, Matt, it is a priority of this White House to honor the First Amendment. And it is a fact that Americans are consuming their news media from various different platforms, especially young people. And as the youngest press secretary in history, thanks to President Trump, I take great pride in opening up this room to new media voices to share the President's message with as many Americans as possible. In doing so, number one, we will ensure that outlets like yours, Axios and Breitbart, which are widely respected and viewed outlets, have an actual seat in this room every day. We also, again, encourage anybody in this country. Whether you are a TikTok content creator, a blogger, a podcaster, if you are producing legitimate news content, no matter the medium, you will be allowed to apply for press credentials to this White House. And as I said earlier, our new media website is whitehouse.gov/new media. And so we encourage people to apply. Again, as long as you are creating news-related content of the day and you're a legitimate independent journalist, you're welcome to cover this White House.
And secondly, Caroline, you said you laid out several of the actions that President Trump has taken. Obviously, it's a stark contrast to the previous administration and breakneck speed from President Trump. Can we expect that pace to continue as the first 100 days moves along here and beyond that?
Absolutely. There's no doubt President Trump has always been the hardest working man in politics. I think that's been proven over the past week. This president has again signed more than 300 executive orders. He's taken historic action. I gaggled aboard Air Force One to mark the first 100 days of this administration, 4 p.m. last Friday, or first 100 hours rather. And this president did more in the first 100 hours than the previous president did in the first 100 days. So President Trump, I think you can all expect for him to continue to work at this breakneck speed, so I hope you're all ready to work very hard. I know that we are. Zeke Miller.
Thanks, Caroline. A question that we've asked your predecessors of both parties in this job. When you're up here in this briefing room speaking to the American public, do you view yourself and your role as advocating on behalf of the president or providing the unvarnished truth that is, not to lie, not to obfuscate to the American people?
I commit to telling the truth from this podium every single day. I commit to speaking on behalf of the President of the United States. That is my job. And I will say it's very easy to speak truth from this podium when you have a president who is implementing policies that are wildly popular with the American people, and that's exactly what this administration is doing. It's correcting the lies and the wrongs of the past 4 years, many of the lies that have been told to your faces in this very briefing room. I will not do that. But since you brought up truth, Zeke, I would like to point out, while I vowed to provide the truth from this podium, we ask that all of you in this room hold yourselves to that same standard. We know for a fact there have been lies that have been pushed by many legacy media outlets in this country about this president, about his family, and we will not accept that. We will call you out when we feel that your reporting is wrong or there is misinformation about this White House. So yes, I will hold myself to the truth, and I expect everyone in this room to do the same.
And Caroline, just on a substantive question, yesterday the White House Office of Management and Budget directed across the board freeze, with some exceptions for individual assistance, we understand, to federal grants. It's caused a lot of confusion around the country among Head Start providers, among providers services to homeless veterans, Medicaid providers, states saying they're having trouble accessing the portal. Could you help us clear up some of the confusion, give some certainty to folks, and also is that uncertainty, how does that uncertainty service the president's voters?
Well, I think there's only uncertainty in this room amongst the media. There's no uncertainty in this building. So let me provide the certainty and the clarity that all of you need. This is not a blanket pause on federal assistance and grant programs from the Trump administration. Individual assistance, that includes, I'm not naming everything that's included, but just to give you a few examples, Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, food stamps, welfare benefits, assistance that is going directly to individuals will not be impacted by this pause. And I want to make that very clear to any Americans who are watching at home who may be a little bit confused about some of the media reporting. This administration, if you are receiving individual assistance from the federal government, you will still continue to receive that. However, it is the responsibility of this president and this administration to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. That is something that President Trump campaigned on. That's why he has launched DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, who is working alongside OMB. And that's why OMB sent out this memo last night, because the president signed an executive order directing OMB to do just this. And the reason for this is to ensure that every penny that is going out the door is not conflicting with the executive orders and actions that this president has taken. So what does this pause mean? It means no more funding for illegal DEI programs. It means no more funding for the Green New scam that has cost American taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. It means no more funding for transgenderism and wokeness across our federal bureaucracy and agencies. No more funding for Green New Deal social engineering policies. Again, people who are receiving individual assistance, you will continue to receive that. And President Trump is looking out for you by issuing this pause because he is being good steward of your taxpayer dollars.
Thanks, Caroline.
Sure.
How long is this pause going to last, and how is the Trump administration recommending that organizations that rely on federal funding make payroll, pay their rent in the meantime?
It is a temporary pause, and the Office of Management and Budget is reviewing the federal funding that has been going out the door. Again, not for individual assistance, but for all of these other programs that I mentioned. I also spoke with the incoming director of OMB this morning, and he told me to tell all of you that the line to his office is open for other federal government agencies across the board, and if they feel that programs are necessary and in line with the president's agenda, then the Office of Management and Budget will review those policies. I think this is a very responsible measure. Again, the past 4 years, we've seen the Biden administration spend money like drunken sailors. It's a big reason we've had an inflation crisis in this country, and it's incumbent upon this administration to make sure, again, that every penny is being accounted for honestly.
Why impose this pause with so little notice? Why not give organizations more time to plan for the fact that they are about to lose, in some cases, really crucial federal funding, at least for a period of time?
There was notice. It was the executive order that the president signed. There's also a freeze on hiring, as you know, a regulatory freeze, and there's also a freeze on foreign aid. And this is, again, incredibly important to ensure that this administration is taking into consideration how hard the American people are working. And their tax dollars actually matter to this administration. You know, just during this pause, DOJ and OMB have actually found that there was $37 million that was about to go out the door to the World Health Organization, which is an organization, as you all know, that President Trump, with the swipe of his pen in that executive order, is no longer wants the United States to be a part of. So that wouldn't be in line with the president's agenda. DOJ and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money. So that's what this pause is focused on, being good stewards of tax dollars.
And so this doesn't
Jennifer.
affect Meals on Wheels or Head Start or disaster aid?
Again, it does not affect individual assistance that's going to Americans.
To follow up on Nancy, do you think there will be a list of who is affected and how much money is affected? How will these contractors and organizations know if they are actually having their funding frozen? And then secondly, if you're willing, can you just clarify, is the end goal of this to essentially challenge Congress or to prove that the president can withhold federal funding? In other words, is this an attempt to pick a fight to prove that he can do this?
No, absolutely not. As it says right here in the memo, which I have, and I'd encourage all of you to read it, it says the American people elected President Trump to be the president of the United States and gave him a mandate to increase the impact of every federal dollar. This memo requires federal agencies to identify and review all federal financial assistance programs and supporting activities consistent with the president's policies and requirements. The American people gave President Trump an overwhelming mandate on November 5th, and he's just trying to ensure that the tax money going out the door in this very bankrupt city actually aligns with the will and the priorities of the American people. Brian Glenn.
Yes. Welcome. You
Thank
look
you.
great. You're doing a great job.
Thank
you talked
you.
about transparency, and some of us in this room know how just transparent President Trump has been the last 5 or 6 years. I think you'll do the same. My question is, do you think this latest incident with the president of Colombia is indicative of the global, powerful respect they have for President Trump moving forward, not only to engage in economic diplomacy with these countries, but also world peace?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'll echo the answer that the president gave on Air Force One last night when he was asked a very similar question by one of your colleagues in the media. This signifies peace through strength is back. And this president will not tolerate illegal immigration into America's interior. And he expects every nation on this planet, again, to cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens who illegally entered into our country and broke America's laws. Won't be tolerated. And as you saw, the Colombian government quickly folded and agreed to all of President Trump's demands. Flights are underway once again. Deanna.
2 questions on deportations, if I may. President Trump had said on the campaign trail that he would deport pro-Hamas students who are here on visas. And on his first day in office, he signed an executive order that said, quote,
the U.S. must ensure that admitted aliens and aliens otherwise already present in the U.S. do not bear hostile attitudes towards its citizens, culture, government, institutions, or founding principles. So should we take this executive order as Trump saying he would be open to deporting those students who are here on visas but, hold pro-Hamas sympathies?
The president is open to deporting individuals who have broken our nation's immigration laws. So if they are here illegally, then certainly he is open to deporting them. And that's what this administration is hard at work at doing. We receive data from DHS and from ICE every single day. From what we hear on the ground, ICE agents are feeling incredibly empowered right now because they actually have a leader in this building who is supporting them in doing their jobs that they were hired to do, which is to detain, arrest, and deport illegal criminals who have invaded our nation's borders over the past 4 years. That's what the president is committed to seeing. Peter.
Caroline, if I can ask you very quickly, just following up on the question on immigration first. President Trump, during the course of the campaign in 2024, said the following about illegal immigration. He said, they're going back home where they belong, and we start with the criminals. There are many, many criminals. NBC News has learned that ICE arrested 1,179 undocumented immigrants on Sunday, but nearly half of them, 566 of the migrants, appear to have no prior criminal record besides entering the country illegally. Is the president still focused exclusively, which is a civil crime, it's not criminal?
It's a federal crime.
So I'm asking though, he said he was going to focus on those violent offenders first. So is violent offenders no longer the predicate for these people to be deported?
The president has said countless times on the campaign trail, I've been with him at the rallies, I know you've been there covering them too, Peter, that he is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal. And so therefore, you are subject to deportation.
I apologize for interrupting. So to be clear, it's not violent criminals do not receive precedence in terms of the deportations taking place.
The president has also said two things can be true at the same time. We want to deport illegal criminals, illegal immigrants from this country, but the president has said that, of course, the illegal criminal drug dealers, the rapists, the murderers, the individuals who have committed heinous acts on the interior of our country and who have terrorized law-abiding American citizens, absolutely, those should be the priority of ICE, but that doesn't mean that the other illegal criminals who entered our nation's borders are off the table.
Understood. Then let me ask you a separate question about the confusion that still exists across the country right now as it relates to the freeze or the pause as it's described. President Trump, of course, ran one of the key policy items was that he was going to lower prices, lower the cost of everything from groceries, as he often said. But in many of the cases, it would seem that some of these moves could raise prices for real Americans on everything from low-income heating, that program, child care programs. Will nothing that the president's doing here in terms of the freeze in these programs raise prices on ordinary Americans?
What particular actions are you referring to that
I'm
would...
referring to LHEAP right now. That's the low-income heating program, for example. We can talk about... There's no clarity, so I could refer to a lot of them. We don't know what they are specifically. Can you tell us that LHEAP is not one of those affected?
So you're asking a hypothetical based on programs that you can't even identify.
No, I just identified.
What I can tell you
just
is
be
that
clear, since you guys haven't identified, let's do it together just for Americans at home. Medicaid, is that affected?
I gave you a list of examples: Social Security, Medicare, welfare benefits, food stamps that will not be impacted by this federal pause. I can get you the full list after this briefing from the Office of Management and Budget. But I do want to address the cost cutting because that's certainly very important and cutting the cost of living in this country. President Trump has taken historic action over the past week to do that. He actually signed a memorandum to deliver emergency price relief for American families, which took a number of actions. I can walk you through those. He also repealed many onerous Biden administration regulations. We know over the past 4 years, American households has been essentially taxed $55,000 in regulations from the previous administration. President Trump, with the swipe of his pen, rescinded those, which will ultimately put more money back in the pockets of the American people. So deregulation is a big deal. And then when it comes to energy, I mean, the president signed an executive order to declare a national energy emergency emergency here at home, which is going to make America energy dominant. We know that energy is one of the #1 drivers of inflation, and so that's why the president wants to increase our energy supply to bring down costs for Americans. The Trump energy boom is incoming, and Americans can expect that.
Please share that. Thank you.
Caroline, I think some of the confusion may be here with this pause on federal funding. You've made it clear you're not stopping funds that go directly to individuals, but there certainly are lots of organizations that receive funding and then may pass along a benefit. Meals on Wheels, for one. They provide meals for over 2.2 million seniors. What is the president's message to Americans out there, many of whom supported him and voted for him, who are concerned that this is going to impact them directly, even if, as you said, the funding isn't coming directly to their wallet?
I have now been asked and answered this question 4 times. To individuals at home who receive direct assistance from the federal government, you will not be impacted by this federal freeze. In fact, OMB just sent out a memo to Capitol Hill with Q&A to clarify some of the questions and the answers that all of you are asking me right now. Again, direct assistance will not be impacted. I've been asked and answered about this OMB memo. There's many other topics of the day. Jackie Heinrich.
Indirect assistance, Caroline, if it's going to another organization and then trickling down.
Direct assistance that is in the hands of the American people will not be impacted. Again, as I said to Peter, we will continue to provide that list as it comes to fruition. But OMB right now is focused on analyzing the federal government's spending, which is exactly what the American people elected President Trump to do.
And one question on immigration, Caroline, on immigration. Of the 3,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office, can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
You may have one of the worst first. They all have a criminal record.
And welcome to the briefing
If they
room.
broke our nation's laws, yes, they are criminal. Yes.
Thank you. On stripping security details for figures like John Bolton, Pompeo, Brian Hook, Senator Tom Cotton said that he's seen the intelligence and the threat from Iran is real for anyone who played a role in Soleimani's strike. He voiced concern it wouldn't just impact those individuals, but potentially their family, innocent bystanders, friends, anyone who's near them when they're out in public. Is the president open to reconsidering his decision?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday, and he was firm in his decision despite some of the comments that you had referenced, and he's made it very clear that he does not believe American taxpayers should fund security details for individuals who have served in the government for the rest of their lives, and there's nothing stopping these individuals that you mentioned from obtaining private security. That's where the president stands on it. I have no updates on that.
Is there any concern that this decision might jeopardize the administration's ability to hire the best advisors for these kinds of positions in the future?
No, in fact, I've talked to the Presidential Personnel Office who has told me directly that there is such an influx of resumes for this administration that it's incredibly overwhelming. There is no lack of talent for the Trump administration. Reagan Reed.
Would he take any responsibility if anything happened to these people? Would he feel at all that his decision was a factor in that?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday. I defer you to his
Thanks,
comments.
Caroline.
Reagan, since you're in the back row, I hear you. The back row hasn't gotten much attention in the last 4 years, so I'm happy to answer your question.
I can project. Does the president intend to permanently cut off funding to NGOs that are bringing illegal foreign nationals to the country, such as Catholic Charities?
I am actually quite certain that the president signed an executive order that did just that, and I can point you to that.
Caroline, President Trump issued an executive order on increased vetting for refugees and visa applications.
Right.
Part of that order was considering an outright ban for countries that have deficient screening processes. Has the president considered yet which countries might fall into this category, or countries like Afghanistan or Syria under consideration for a full ban?
Yeah, so the president signed an executive order to streamline the vetting for visa applicants and for illegal immigrants in this country who are coming, of course, from other nations. It also directed the Secretary of State to review the process and make sure that other countries around the world are being completely transparent with our nation and the individuals that they are sending here. And so the Secretary of State has been directed to report back to the president. I haven't seen that report yet. We've only been here for a few days.
Caroline, two questions for you. One, on the freeze in federal funding. Who advised the president on the legality of telling government agencies that they don't have to spend money that was already appropriated by Congress?
Well, as the OMB memo states, this is certainly within the confines of the law. So White House counsel's office believes that this is within the president's power to do it, and therefore he's doing it.
Okay, so they disagree with lawmakers who say that they don't have the power to freeze this funding.
Again, I would point you to the language in the memo that clearly states this is within the law.
And all that happened on Friday night. The administration fired several inspectors general without giving Congress the 30-day legally required notification that they were being fired. I think only 2 were left at DHS and the DOJ. And then yesterday we saw several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department who worked on the investigations into the president. As you know, they are career prosecutors, therefore they are afforded civil service protections. How is the administration deciding which laws to follow and which ones to ignore?
So it is the belief of this White House and the White House counsel's office that the president was within his executive authority to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes to. There's also a case that went before the Supreme Court in 2020, Scala Law LLC versus the Customs, Bureau protection. I would advise you to look at that case, and that's the legality that this White House was resting on.
So you're confident that if they bring lawsuits against you, those prosecutors who were fired, that they will succeed?
We will win in court,
And
yes.
did he personally direct this, given they worked on the classified documents investigation and the election interference investigation?
This was a memo that went out by the Presidential Personnel Office, and the president is the leader of this White House, so yes. Yes.
Caroline.
Sure.
Thank you. Congrats on your first day behind the podium.
Thank you.
President Trump ended funding for UNRWA and also designated the Houthis a foreign terrorist organization.
That's right.
Both were decisions that the previous administration had reversed. So here's my question. Will there be an investigation into who gave the previous administration this terrible advice?
Well, that's a very good point. I haven't heard discussions about such an investigation, but it wouldn't be a bad idea considering that the Houthis certainly are terrorists. They have launched attacks on U.S. naval ships across this world, and so I think it was a very wise move by this administration to redesignate them as a terrorist group, because they are, and I think it was a foolish decision by the previous administration to do so. As for an investigation, I'm not sure about that, but it's not a bad idea. Josh.
Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Can you give us an update on the president's plans for his tariff agenda? He spoke a lot about this yesterday, and there's a couple of dates coming up that he's spoken to. Number one, February 1st, he's alluded to both the potential for tariffs for Canada and Mexico, but also China to take effect on those days. What's he thinking about that?
Yeah.
Should those countries expect that?
Again, he was asked and answered this question this past weekend when he took a lot of questions from the press, and he said that the February 1st date for Canada and Mexico still holds.
What about the China 10% tariff that he also had mused about last Tuesday going into effect on the same day?
Yeah, the president has said that he is very much still considering that for February 1st.
Separately, yesterday he talked also about sectoral tariffs on, for instance, pharmaceuticals as well as semiconductor computer chips. He talked about steel, aluminum, and copper. What's the timeline on those? Is that a similar sort of coming days thing?
Yeah, so when the president talked about that in his speech yesterday, that actually wasn't a new announcement. That was within a presidential memorandum that he signed in one of the first days here in the White House on his America First trade agenda. So there's more details on those tariffs in there. As far as a date, I don't have a specific date to read out to you, but the president is committed to implementing tariffs effectively, just like he did in his first term.
And finally, he also was asked on the plane when he gaggled about the potential for a universal tariff. He was asked maybe about 2.5%.
Yeah.
There was a report about that. He said he wanted much bigger than that. Should we understand that these tariffs would add up? You know, in other words, you might have country-specific tariffs like Canada, Mexico, China. You might have sectoral tariffs like on pharmaceuticals, as well as a potential universal tariff on top of that. Do these stack on one or the other, or would one sort of take precedence over another?
All I can point you to is what the president has said on this front. The February 1st date for Canada and Mexico, also the China tariff that he has discussed. He rejected the 2.5% tariff. He said that was a little bit too low. He wants it to be higher. I'll leave it to him to make any decisions on that front. Phil Wegman.
What the Mexicans
Phil.
and Canadians have done so far, do you have any comment on whether that has met the bar, what he wants to see on fentanyl? Thank you.
I won't get ahead of the president again on advocating to foreign nations on what they should or shouldn't do to get away from these tariffs. The president has made it very clear, again, that he expects every nation around this world to cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens. And the president has also put out specific statements in terms of Canada and Mexico when it comes to what he expects in terms of border security. We have seen a historic level of cooperation from Mexico, but again, as far as I'm still tracking, and that was last night talking to the president directly, February 1st is still on the books. Phil.
Thank you, Caroline.
Caroline, quick programming note and then a question on taxes.
Programming note.
Well, in terms of programming,
Sounds
should we
fun.
expect to see you here every day? How frequently will these press briefings be?
It is a good question, April. So look, the president, as you know, is incredibly accessible. First day here, he wanted all of you in the Oval Office. You got a 60-minute press conference with the leader of the free world while he was simultaneously signing executive orders. I may add that's pretty impressive. I don't think the previous office holder would be able to pull such a thing off. So look, the president is the best spokesperson that this White House has, and I can assure you that you will be hearing from both him and me as much as possible.
And then a question about tax cuts. You know, the president has promised to extend the tax cuts from the previous term. I'm curious, you know, does the president support corresponding spending cuts as some Republicans have called for in Congress? And will the new Treasury Secretary be leading those negotiations with the Hill as Mnuchin did during the first administration?
The president is committed to both tax cuts and spending cuts, and he has a great team negotiating on his behalf, but there's no better negotiator than Donald Trump, and I'm sure he'll be involved in this reconciliation process as it moves forward.
Caroline,
Sure.
Caroline, in the announcement that you made last night on the Iron Dome, it said the president had directed that the United States will build this Iron Dome.
Yeah.
When you read into the executive order, it seemed short of that. It asked for a series of studies and reports back to him. Can you tell us whether the president has directed this? And if he is as concerned on this issue, why the suspensions that we saw listed by OMB included so many different nuclear programs, non-proliferation programs, programs to blend down nuclear weapons, and so forth?
First of all, when it comes to the Iron Dome, the executive order directed the implementation of an Iron Dome. It also, as you said, kind of directed research and studies to see if or how the United States can go about doing this, particularly the Department of Defense. When it comes to the other question that you asked about those specific programs, again, I would say this is not a ban. This is a temporary pause and a freeze to ensure that all of the money going out from Washington, D.C. is aligned with the president's agenda. And as the Office of Management and Budget has updates on what will be kickstarted once again, I will provide those to you.
Just to clarify for a sec what you were saying before on Medicaid. It wasn't clear to me whether you were saying that no Medicaid would be cut off. Obviously, a lot of this goes to states before it goes to individuals and so forth. So are you guaranteeing here that no individual now on Medicaid would see a cutoff because of the pause?
I'll check back on that and get back to you. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. As you know, in the first week that the president was in office, signed an executive order as it relates to birthright citizenship, trying to eliminate that. Now, 22 state attorney generals have said that this is unconstitutional. A federal judge has just agreed with their argument. What's the administration's argument for doing away with birthright citizenship?
The folks that you mentioned have a right to have that legal opinion, but it is in disagreement with the legal opinion of this administration. This administration believes that birthright citizenship is unconstitutional, and that is why President Trump signed that executive order. Illegal immigrants who come to this country and have a child are not subject to the laws of this jurisdiction. That's the opinion of this administration. We have already appealed the lawsuit that was filed against this administration, and we are prepared to fight this all the way to the Supreme Court if we have to, because President Trump believes that this is a necessary step to secure our nation's borders and protect our homeland.
On foreign policy, Caroline, on foreign policy, if I may, the president's commitment to the NATO Defense Alliance, is it as strong as the prior administration? Is it the same as when he served as president in his first term in office?
As long as NATO pays their fair share, and President Trump has called on NATO allies to increase their defense spending to 5%. You actually saw the head of NATO at Davos last week on Bloomberg television saying that President Trump is right, and if Europe wants to keep itself safe, they should increase their defense spending. I would just add that there was no greater ally to our European allies than President Trump in his first term. The world for all nations in Europe, and of course here at home, was much safer because of President Trump's peace through strength diplomatic approach. Monica.
Thank you, Caroline, and it's great to finally be called on as well in the briefing room. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Of course, we know President Trump just got back from North Carolina and California meeting with victims of natural disasters. There's the 2-year anniversary of the East Palestine, Ohio toxic train derailment. Does the president have any plans to go visit the victims of that toxic spill, or just visit in general?
No plans that I can read out for you here. If that changes, I will certainly keep you posted. What I can tell you is that President Trump still talks about his visit to East Palestine, Ohio. That was one of the turning points, I would say, in the previous election campaign, where Americans were reminded that President Trump is a man of the people, and he, as a candidate, visited that town that was just derailed by the train derailment, no pun intended, and he offered support and hope. Just like I saw the president do this past week, it was a purposeful decision by this president on his first domestic trip to go to North Carolina and to California to visit with Americans who were impacted by Hurricane Helene and also by the deadly fires. A red state and a blue state, both of which feel forgotten by the previous administration and the federal government. That is now ended under President Trump. He will continue to put Americans first, whether they're in East Palestine, in Pacific Palisades, or in North Carolina. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. On California, could you please clarify what the military did with the water last night as referenced in the president's Truth Social post?
The water has been turned back on in California, and this comes just days after President Trump visited Pacific Palisades, and as you all saw, applied tremendous pressure on state and local officials in Pacific Palisades, including Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, to turn on the water and to direct that water to places in the south and in the middle of the state that have been incredibly dry, which has led to the expansion, the rapid expansion of these fires.
So could you clarify what the military's role was, where the water came from, and how it got there?
Again, the Army Corps of Engineers has been on the ground in California to respond to the devastation from these wildfires, and I would point out that just days after President Trump visited the devastation from these fires, the water was turned on. That is because of the pressure campaign he put on state and local officials there who clearly lack all common sense. And I will never forget being at that roundtable with the president last week and hearing the frustration in the voices of Pacific Palisades residents who feel as though their government has just gone insane. Before President Trump showed up on the scene, Karen Bass was telling private property owners that they would have to wait 18 months to access their private property. So this administration, the president and his team that's on the ground in California, Rick Grinnell, who he has designated to oversee this great crisis, will continue to put pressure on Karen Bass and state and local officials to allow residents to access their properties. This is a huge part of it. These residents want to take part in their own clearing out of their properties. They should be able to do that. It's the United States of America. What happened to our freedom? Clearly it's gone in California, but not anymore under President Trump. April.
Caroline, welcome to the briefing room.
Thank you.
Several questions. One on the pause. Will minority-serving institutions, preferably colleges and universities, have those monies held back temporarily at this moment?
Again, I have not seen the entire list because this memo was just sent out. So I will provide you all with updates as we receive them, okay?
Also, secondly, when it comes to immigration, there is this southern border focus. What happens to those who've overstayed their visas? That is part of the broken immigration system. In 2023, there was a report by the Biden administration, the Homeland Security Department, that said overstays of visas were 3 times more than usual. Will there be a focus on the overstays for visas as well?
If an individual is overstaying their visa, they are therefore an illegal immigrant residing in this country and they are subject to deportation.
And also lastly, as we're dealing with anti-DEI, anti-woke efforts, we understand this administration is thinking about celebrating Black History Month. Have you got any word on that, anything that you can offer to us?
As far as I know, this White House certainly still intends to celebrate, and we will continue to celebrate American history and the contributions that all Americans, regardless of race, religion, or creed, have made to our great country, and America is back. Christian Day Talk.
Thanks, Caroline. Just real quick, you mentioned the inflation executive order the president signed, but egg prices have skyrocketed since President Trump took office, so what specifically is he doing to lower those costs for Americans?
Really glad you brought this up because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country. We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration in the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading to the shortage. So I will leave you with this point. This is an example of why it's so incredibly important that the Senate moves swiftly to confirm all of President Trump's nominees, including his nominee for the United States Department of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, who is already speaking with Kevin Hassett, who's leading the economic team here at the White House, on how we can address the egg shortage in this country. As for costs, I laid out the plethora of ways that President Trump has addressed saving costs for the American people over the past week. He looks forward to continuing to doing that in the days ahead. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon.
All right, so
Are Medicaid portals down in all 50 states?
Okay, so that was the press briefing. I didn't think we were going to have time for a post show. Normally we would have a longer post show. I got about 5 minutes or so. Unfortunately, this got scheduled yesterday. Oops, the headline's all messed up. Anyways, we're going to have a short post show right now, and I do want to mention the whole Medicaid thing. So let me just fix the headline. So there are reports that some Medicaid portals are down because of the executive of the memo that went out last night from the Trump administration freezing federal funding. So, for example, Chris Murphy, who is the senator from Connecticut, he posted. Let me show you this. Can confirm Connecticut's Medicaid payment system has been turned off. Doctors and hospitals cannot get paid. Discussions go ongoing about whether services can continue. Medicaid covers health care for millions of seniors and covers 40% of births in America. Brian Schatz, if I'm pronouncing this right, who is a U.S. Senator, Democrat from Hawaii, says multiple states locked out of Medicaid portal. This is a Trump shutdown, except this time it's unlawful. So I can't speak to this because I'm not familiar with these portals. I'm just letting you know that there are some reports about this coming in about Medicaid portals and issues. So during the press briefing, Karoline Leavitt was asked if the Trump administration's memo calling for a spending freeze would apply to Medicaid, and she said, I'll get back to you on that. So again, I'll be keeping an eye on this today. Let me take a few comments real quick. I'm sorry, I would like to stay on the air for a long press conference, but it's got to be short today because I have a previous appointment I need to go to. By the way, quick thanks for your support. Jasper Axelrod, Rhonda Brown, MAGA since 1492, Sean Ryder, N3 Honest, UFO, Rule, Bebop and Rocksteady, Carrie Thompson, DJ Dungeon Master, Lady Red, Andrew Hurt, Multi Corker, Freedom Can, Channel 5 Action News, Fred Flintstone. Thanks for your support. All right, I'm going to take a couple comments from the chat. What did you think of the press briefing? By the way, thanks to Daredevil and for your support on Twitch. Let me read some comments here. One of our viewers says, I will never get tired for winning. People are saying, will I apply for the White House, for a White House press pass, I guess, to cover a White House press briefing? Maybe, we'll see. I have to look into it. Let's see here. Trisha Lyderson says, cut funding to the states, but then blame the states that the people aren't receiving the aid. Jesse's Girl says, hopefully Medicaid is not cut. Dub Standers says, it's garbage. The Medicaid sites are down all the time. The whole system is garbage. Again, I don't have details about this Medicaid thing. I'll be looking into it. Maybe we'll do a stream later today talking about the whole funding thing. The order, the memo, the spending freeze memo is supposed to take effect at 5 p.m. All right, let me just read some more comments here. Yeah, the memo did say that Social Security and Medicare would not be impacted, but it didn't say Medicaid. American Girl says, I better get a paycheck from the hospital. Let's see here. Jason Paquette thought she did a great job. Indica Love thinks she's not going to last. Iced Fire says, first good press conference in 4 years. One of our viewers thinks the Medicaid sites reportedly being down is a software glitch. Let's see here. One of our viewers said the tribulation begins. Let's see here. One of our viewers thinks the Medicaid portals got hacked. All right, I have like 2 more minutes. Then again, I'm sorry I can't stay on for longer. But if there's big news later today, after this appointment, I can do another live stream. So we very well might do another live stream today. But let's see. Also, she said that there was a statement she mentioned from President Trump, saying that the drones in New Jersey were not the enemy. I think she said it was a combination of FAA-approved drone flights and like hobbyists, if I remember right. Katie Girl says, I thought she did great. Can I replay the press conference? I can't replay it now because I have to end this in like 2 minutes. Let's see here. Lady Bird Lee says, economic chaos, which is what they want. One of our viewers said, nice to see transparency, such as the NJ drones were ours, no threat. Mike Ante said, common sense is finally back. Shadow thinks many will die because of Trump, so sad he doesn't care about people in need. Okay, so again, this was the first White House press briefing. Normally, we would have a longer press post show. And so let me, again, I'm really sorry to wrap up this kind of quickly. Normally that would not happen, but I got to run. But again, if there's big news later today, I will definitely be back on the air. So I'm going to do this really quickly. Subscribe, follow Agenda Free TV. Turn on our notifications. We have a notification system. It works awesome. It's free. The mods will post the link in the chat. Also, you can follow me on X for breaking news updates at Lookner. And a huge thanks. I really appreciate you guys being here for this first press briefing today. Also huge thanks. Before I go, I got to shout out our moderators. They are awesome. They're the reason why we can have chat rooms. Carms, Ruth Krafasi, thank you. Who else? Linda Belk and Larry on X. Beth Mythical, thanks for modding. Janet B, thank you. Over there on Twitch, thank you to our mods. A Moment of Lovely Hearsay. I got that fire. Surly Dev, thank you. And also our Facebook moderators like Kay Larry Body and Margaret Riley. Okay, I'm really sorry for the quick ending, but at least we got to see the whole briefing. More coverage on this channel soon. Thank you for watching. Sorry for the quick post show, and we'll see you soon with more live breaking news coverage right here at Agenda Free TV.